So now that we've learned a bit about how to build multidimensional arrays and how to use them to build a tic-tac-toe board, let's use that same knowledge, that same skill set to build this Pac-Man-like game where we have a bunch of ghosts and where we have a Pac-Man that's going to hunt those ghosts down and eat them, right? Um, yeah, but just by the way, this is sort of a digression, but for those of you who are maybe it's too young to remember Pac-Man, you can look it up on the web. Just go by going here, um, Googling Play Pac-Man online. And here's actually one created by Google, probably was an anniversary edition. And here's your little Pac-Man, and you can then hunt after the ghosts. I'm actually running my little controls here, and there's lots of annoying um, that accompanies this too. Accompany. Let's stop that now. This game was very popular when I was growing up in the 80s when we had asteroids. Nowadays, sure we're much more sophisticated things like Call of Duty and whatever. So let's go back to our Pac-Man here, and how then do we represent this board? Well, we do it very, very similarly to the way we represented the tic-tac-toe board. Go to our code base. And what I've done here is I've just created a grid. Okay. This time I'm not it's populating it with numbers, but the cell char values, which represent divs, and these are empty cells. And then I have these other cells. I haven't used them yet, but to represent a ghost or a Pac-Man. So once we have the grid built, then we can, and you can see here, it's an it's a array with 5 internal arrays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's an array of arrays, and that outer array then has 5 internal arrays. And then, which of course visually is this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I can populate the board with these ghost characters. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying a position on the 4th array, and then in the first, well, it's really the second position, uh, we put a ghost character. So let's count that, okay? So in the 4th array, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this first or second position rather, 0, 1, we put a ghost. And so I've added all these ghosts using that same syntax to add all these other ghosts. And then finally, I've added the Pac-Man down here, which is at position 2, 4, and let's count that. Okay, that's 2 on the x. Let's refresh this. So 2 on the x-axis, so 0, 1, 2, and then 4th position, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That places the Pac-Man in the appropriate place. To actually draw the board, I'm using this, I'm calling this print grid method. And, and here are 2 examples of the print grid method. One just uses a for loop and one uses a for each syntax. I think the for loop is a little easier to understand. So let me just walk you through that. Basically what's happening here is we're iterating through through the array, right, the outer array, and think of it as the y-axis, because it is the y-axis really. And then think of it as moving from the top to the bottom of, so it's easy actually to sort of think of it visually. So here's the multi-dimensional array, and we're iterating it iterating down from the top to the bottom. Using the y-axis, so starting from y equals 0 to y, you know, incrementing y. And then for each of uh, the y's, we have a row, and then we iterate across along the x-axis. And so that's what really is going on there in this for loop is you're iterating with the y through the y dimension, and then you're iterating through the x dimension, first vertically and then horizontally. And as we do that, we then are building the grid. And once we've built the grid, adding a break after we've iterated through each row, then at the very end, we take the grid string and just populate the inner HTML of a div that we have in our DOM. And choose your poison. You can either use a for loop. I really think it's probably easier to understand because you can sort of map it visually, or even geographically or spatially. But if you prefer the for each approach down here, you can use that instead.